Vulnerability, the hidden superpower of authentic leadership. Welcome to a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about leadership. Today, we're going to explore a concept that might seem counterintuitive at first, but has the power to revolutionize the way we lead, connect, and succeed in both business and life. We're diving deep into the world of vulnerability, not as a weakness, but as a hidden superpower that can transform your leadership in your life. I'm thrilled to share with you the incredible insights I've gained from a recent interview with the remarkable Aleneia Prewitt. Aleneia is a true visionary in the world of business and personal empowerment, whose impact on making the world a better place is nothing short of extraordinary. Her wisdom and experiences have the potential to reshape the way we think about success, leadership, and personal growth. Imagine for a moment a world where leaders aren't afraid to say, "I don't know." A world where admitting mistakes is seen as a strength, not a weakness. A world where authenticity trumps perfection every single time. This isn't just a utopian dream. It's a reality that's unfolding right now in organizations across the globe, led by brave individuals who've discovered the transformative power of vulnerability. But let's be honest, the word vulnerability doesn't exactly scream power, does it? For many of us, it conjures images of weakness, of exposure, of risk. We've been conditioned to believe that leaders should be invincible, all-knowing, unshakable. But what if I told you that this very belief is what's holding us back from true greatness? When I sat down with Aleneia, one thing became crystal clear. The power of vulnerability in leadership is not just real, it's revolutionary. She shared a story that stuck me to my core, a story that challenges everything we think we know about effective leadership. Picture this, a high-stakes business crisis, the kind that makes headlines and keeps CEOs up at night. Aleneia's company was in the eye of the storm. The traditional playbook would say to put on a brave face, to project confidence and control at all costs. But Aleneia chose a different path, a path of radical honesty and vulnerability. In a room full of anxious employees, she did the unthinkable. She admitted she was scared. She confessed that she didn't have all the answers. And then she asked for help. The result? It wasn't chaos or a loss of respect. It was a seismic shift in the entire dynamic of her organization. Ideas started flowing. Collaboration soared. People who had been silent before suddenly found their voices. Together, they not only weathered the storm, but emerged stronger, more united, and more innovative than ever before. This wasn't just a feel-good moment. It was a turning point that transformed her business from the inside out. And it all started with the courage to be vulnerable. Now, I can almost hear the skeptics among you. That's all well and good, you might be thinking. But how does this translate to the bottom line? How does vulnerability pay the bills? Well, let me tell you. The impact is profound, and it's measurable. Aleneia shared some fascinating research that might just change your mind. Companies with high levels of psychological safety, where employees feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable, outperform their peers by a significant margin. They're more innovative, more adaptable to change, and more resilient in the face of challenges. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly inspired by a leader who seemed perfect and untouchable? Probably never. We're inspired by those who show us their humanity, who let us see their struggles and their growth. Because in their vulnerability, we see our own potential. But vulnerability in leadership isn't just about improving business metrics. It's about something much more fundamental. It's about being human. In our increasingly digital and disconnected world, there's a hunger for authentic human connection. And as leaders, we have the power, no, the responsibility to foster that connection, to create workplaces and communities where people feel seen, heard, and valued. Aleneia's journey reminds us that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions, being open to learning, and creating an environment where everyone can bring their whole selves to work. It's about acknowledging that we're all works in progress. And that's not just okay. It's beautiful. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This all sounds great, but I'm not sure I can do it. What if I'm judged? What if it backfires? These are valid concerns, and they're part of the journey. Embracing vulnerability doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you feel the fear and do it anyway because you understand the power on the other side of that fear. Let me share another powerful story from Aleneia's experience. She told me about a young manager in her company who was struggling with a major project. The easy path would have been to hide his difficulties, to pretend everything was fine. Instead, inspired by the culture of vulnerability Aleneia had fostered, he came to her and openly shared his challenges. What happened next was remarkable. Instead of judgment or disappointment, he was met with support and collaboration. His team rallied around him. Senior leaders offered guidance. And together, they turned what could have been a failure into a stunning success. This manager's courage to be vulnerable not only saved the project, but also accelerated his own growth and strengthened the bonds within his team. It was a vivid demonstration of how vulnerability can be a catalyst for both personal and organizational transformation. But vulnerability isn't just about sharing your struggles. It's also about being open to joy, to possibility, to growth. It's about letting yourself be fully seen in your moments of triumph as well as in your moments of doubt. It's about celebrating your successes without diminishing yourself and acknowledging your areas for growth without shame. Aleneia emphasized that this kind of authentic leadership doesn't just benefit the individual. It has a ripple effect throughout the entire organization and beyond. When leaders model vulnerability and authenticity, it gives permission for everyone else to do the same. And that's when the magic happens. That's when creativity flourishes, when innovation takes off, when people start bringing their best selves to work every day. But let's be clear, embracing vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing or being inappropriate. It's not about airing all your dirty laundry or ignoring professional boundaries. Instead, it's about showing up authentically, admitting when you don't have all the answers, and being willing to learn and grow alongside your team. Aleneia shared a powerful metaphor that really stuck with me. She said, think of vulnerability like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. And just like building any muscle, it can be uncomfortable at first. You might feel exposed, maybe even a little sore, but with practice, it becomes easier, more natural. And the rewards, deeper connections, greater trust, more authentic relationships, are well worth the initial discomfort. So how do we start building this vulnerability muscle? Aleneia offered some practical steps. First, start small. You don't need to bare your soul in a company-wide meeting on day one. Begin by sharing a small challenge you're facing with a trusted colleague, or admit to your team that you're not sure about something and ask for their input. Second, practice self-compassion. Remember, vulnerability isn't about being perfect, being imperfect. It's about being gentle with yourself as you learn and grow. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. Third, create safe spaces for others to be vulnerable. This could be as simple as asking, what's challenging for you right now? And then really listening to the answer. Or it could involve implementing regular check-ins where team members can share both their successes and their struggles. Fourth, celebrate vulnerability when you see it. When someone on your team takes the risk by being vulnerable, acknowledge it. Thank them for their openness. This reinforces that vulnerability is valued and creates a positive feedback loop. And finally, remember that vulnerability is a journey, not a destination. There will be days when it feels easier and days when it feels impossibly hard. That's okay. The important thing is to keep showing up, keep being authentic, keep growing. Now, I want to address something that might be on your mind. You might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but in the real world, vulnerability can be risky. What about in highly competitive environments? What about industries where showing any weakness could be exploited? These are valid concerns, and Aleneia didn't shy away from them. She shared a powerful example from her work with a client in a notoriously cutthroat industry. This leader was hesitant to embrace vulnerability, fearing it would be seen as weakness by competitors and stakeholders. But here's what happened. By carefully and strategically introducing elements of vulnerable leadership, admitting when they didn't have all the answers, openly discussing challenges with their team, and fostering an environment of psychological safety, this leader actually gained a competitive edge. Their team became more cohesive and innovative. Employee retention skyrocketed. And most surprisingly, their authenticity and transparency actually increased trust with clients and partners. What they feared would be exploited as a weakness became their greatest strength. This story illustrates a crucial point. Vulnerability, when practiced with intention and skill, isn't a liability. It's a powerful tool that can set you apart in even the most challenging environments. But let's dig deeper. Why does vulnerability have such a profound impact? It all comes down to trust. In a world where trust in institutions and leaders is at an all time low, vulnerability has the power to bridge that gap. When a leader is vulnerable, it signals to others that it's safe for them to be vulnerable too. It creates a culture of trust and openness. And in that kind of environment, magic happens. People feel safe to take risks, to innovate, to speak up about problems before they become crises. Aleneia shared research showing that high trust organizations are 2.5 times more likely to be high performing revenue organizations. That's not just a marginal improvement, it's a game changing difference. But the impact of vulnerable leadership goes beyond just the workplace. It has the power to transform our communities, our relationships, even our world. Imagine a political landscape where leaders weren't afraid to admit mistakes and learn from them. Imagine a society where we could have honest, open dialogues about our most pressing issues without fear of judgment or retribution. This isn't just a pipe dream, it's a possibility that's within our grasp if we have the courage to embrace vulnerability. Now, I want to circle back to something Aleneia said that really resonated with me. She said, the greatest leaders aren't those who have all the answers. They're the ones who have the courage to ask the questions, to admit what they don't know, and to invite others into the process of finding solutions. This, to me, is the essence of vulnerable, authentic leadership. It's not about being perfect or invincible. It's about being real, being human, and creating space where others can do the same. As we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a challenge that has the potential to transform not just your leadership, but your life. I challenge you to embrace vulnerability as your superpower, to have the courage to show up authentically, imperfections and all, to create spaces where others feel safe to do the same. Start small if you need to. Tomorrow, admit to one thing you're uncertain about. Ask for help in an area where you feel out of your depth. Share a personal story that illustrates why a project matters to you. Feel the discomfort and push through it. Notice what happens. Notice how it impacts your relationships, your team dynamics, your own sense of authenticity. Remember, every great journey begins with a single step. And this journey, the journey towards more authentic, vulnerable leadership, has the power to transform not just your business, but your life and the lives of those around you. Imagine a world where leaders at all levels, from CEOs to team managers, from political figures to community organizers, had the courage to be vulnerable. Imagine the innovation, the connection, the positive change that could emerge. That world is possible. And it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with all of us having the courage to be seen, to be real, to be vulnerable. So I ask you, are you ready to embrace vulnerability as your superpower? Are you ready to lead with authenticity, with openness, with the courage to be imperfect? The world needs leaders like that. The world needs you, the real you, the authentic you, the vulnerable you. As you leave here today, I want you to remember this: your imperfections, your doubts, your struggles. These aren't weaknesses to be hidden. They're the very things that make you human, that make you relatable, that make you a leader people will follow, not out of obligation, but out of inspiration. Embrace your vulnerability. Let it shine through in your leadership. Be brave enough to be seen, to be real, to be human, because when you do, you give others permission to do the same. And that is how we change the world. Thank you.